Okay, so we're on the Kuf Samach Tes Amad Aleph, 5 lines from the bottom. I'm just going to quickly review the brisa from Kuf Samach Ches Amad Beis at the bottom. Good evening, Rafal. So we're just reading the brisa on the bottom of Kuf Samach Ches Amad Beis, and then we're going to go back to the Gemara because otherwise it's going to be hard to remember. Tonar Rabbanan, 5 lines to the bottom. Bava Amar Avad Shtar Chayvi. Someone who comes and says, I lost my star chayv. Remember, so there's a star chayv. He didn't, not talking about losing his deed, his star of a kinyan or a matana, but a star chayv. Avisha amru edim anu kasavnu v'chasavnu v'naslu ein kaisen le'es a star. We don't write another star because if we write another star, then he's going to have, if he didn't really lose the star, he'll have two stars to use to be gaiva, to take away from the person who he lent the money to. But the Gemara, the Brisa says that's only by shtari halva when he's lending. But a star of sale, he can write it, but he has to exclude. He says that there's no achrayis. He has to say that there's not going to be an ability. You say, listen, you lost your star, so you want to be able to prove that it's your property, but we're not going to write in this new star that you're asking us to write that you can go, if it gets taken away from you by a balchayv who has a shibud, that you're going to go back to the person who sold to you and take away from his leikhem, from the people who bought from him. Because, like we said before, then we're worried that maybe he'll really still have both shtaris and do that twice and take from two lekuchas. Okay, so now let's practice the Gemara. Now we're going to skip. Now go all the way to Kuf Samach Tes Amad Aleph, 5 lines for Rabban. The Gemara asks, why does the Mishnah have? Why does this brisa say that you write the star, this new star, to replace the old lost star? Why do we say you have to write it with a without achrayas, to make a special kind of star? Instead of doing that, instead of saying we're only going to write you a replacement star, but not with achrayas, let's say, you know what, you lost, we'll write you a full-fledged star with achrayas, but also give a receipt to the seller, so that if this lekeach comes back and he says the balchayv took away this karka from me, so now I want to go get from your lekuchas, he'll have a receipt that says, what will it say on the receipt? It's going to say that you can only collect from this point on, meaning that the receipt is going to say we only respect the second star, not the first star. And that way, he won't have the ability to double dip by asking twice to be able to take from lekuchas. Zok the Gemara. Yeah. Amru Rabbanan Kameder Apap. Avramala Kameder Vashi. So the Gemara has a question. So why taka don't we do this shaver? Why don't we do a receipt instead of saying that you have to make a star that doesn't have a chrys? Make a star with a chrys, but provide a receipt so that when this lekeach tries to go and take twice from lekuchas, he's going to get stopped. Because the other person will produce a receipt. The seller will produce a receipt that says you can only use the second star that came on that day. So this answers, this is going according to the Shita that we don't write a shiver. This is going to be a machlokes on the next blot, where somebody paid off, right? Reuven borrowed money from Shimon. And Reuven, he borrowed $100, and then Reuven came and he paid him back $25. And he says, you know what? But now I'm in a bind now. You have a star that says $100, and if I don't do anything, then you could go, in addition to this 25, you could get another 100 instead of just another 75. So he says to Shimon, Reuven says to Shimon, listen, I'll tell you what we'll do. You keep the star, and he says, let's rip up the star and make a new star for $75. And he says, no, you know what? I want to keep my $100 star. Instead, I'll write you a receipt saying that I already received $25. So what happens is that now the burden of making sure that he doesn't lose the piece of paper is shifting. Until now, the lender was the one who had to hold on to the paper in order to get the money from the borrower. Now the borrower has to keep this receipt, in order that the lender shouldn't be able to take the $25 from him. So we're saying, so this Rabbi Yehuda says you can't write a shiver. You're not allowed to do this receipt because it's shifting the burden of who has to watch it over. So that's what the Gemara is saying. So l'chayra, this seems to hold like the Rabbi Yehuda, that we don't make a shiver, and that's the reason why we don't have that possibility. Amalahu, the answer back, no, it's not lav dafka, that the reason why we didn't suggest the possibility of a shiver is because we hold like Yehuda. But alma kaisvin shiver. Really, we would normally write a shiver in the case that we mentioned of a partially repaid loan. The reason why we don't write a receipt over here of where someone says I lost the star of sale, and I want to, and now he wants to replace it, and we're worried about that he's going to go back and take from lekuchas. That means maybe a Balchayv is going to take away from the lekeach, and then this lekeach is going to go twice and take from the lekuchas, but he's not going to, and these lekuchas are not going to realize, they're not going to have the shayva. The shayva is by the lender, by the seller, and he's never going to go to the seller. He's just going to go straight, he's going to go to Bezdin and get his foreclosure documents and go straight to the lekuchas. But tomorrow, what do you mean? How's that going to work? Seif lekuchas lav amari da'ara hadri. Aren't they going to go back when you go to these lekuchas and you take away their property? Normally there's achrayas, so they're going to go back to the person who sold to them and say, you have to pay us back for this property that was taken. So at that point, it's going to become evident that he took twice. So but we don't want that to happen. It's true. First of all, the first teretz is, it's true that could happen, but and he'll find in the end, it will be found out that this purchaser is double dipping and he's using two different shtaris to collect from lekuchas, to take away from lekuchas, and then the lekuchas will go back to the owner. But in the meantime, this scam artist is going to be eating the peiros from this karka, and he's going to benefit from it. Inami, another possibility, we're talking about he'll take from a lekeach, from a purchaser who didn't have achrayis, so this lekeach is not going to go back to the owner at all because he's not going to get paid anyway. So he's saying, if we're saying that it's not, we don't like a shaver because in this case, because he's not going to go back to the owner and he's just going to go to lekeach. Shehavanami. Why don't we have the same problem by a shtar halva, that if you allow him to get a second shtar halva, why don't we worry he's going to take from the lekuchen of this leiva? He'll go get from Bezdin a foreclosure document, take from the lekuchas, and like we said, maybe they're shalei b'achrayas, or maybe he's going to eat the peiros. Why do we have the same problem? So Gemara Hasam dezuzi masik as amri paisa balchoy bezuzi. Over there, since this was we're talking about a halva, so the lender borrowed money, the lekuchas will go back and say, they're gonna be curious. They're gonna say, listen, you borrowed money. Why are you coming to us for karka? Go back to why aren't you going to the person who borrowed the money? And they're gonna go ask the borrower what's going on. The borrower will say, what are you talking about? He never came to me. And certainly if the second one will come, he'll say, what do you mean? We already made good on this loan, on this money that I owed with the first lekech. So he's scamming you by trying to do it with the second one. But on the other hand, Hacha da'ara masik, since we're talking about where the purchaser bought land. They're going to say, listen, this guy who's coming to us for the land, because he says my land was taken away, this guy only wants land. He's not interested in getting money from the original seller. So that's the reason why he's coming. They're not even going to bother checking up on the story. The story makes sense, and they're not going to check on it. Amar Mar. So now we're going back to the original statement, right? That we said that a person who buys a piece of karka and he claims that he lost his shtar. So we said you write a second shtar, but it says without achrayis, because we're worried about if you give achrayis, then he'll go and ask twice to try to be gover from the kuchas. So we said if you write it without achrayis, so therefore he's not able to do so. And how do you write a shtar of selling a piece of karka but without achrayis? The kasvi haki. This is what you write. Shtar denan the loyle migvive loy mishavdi v'loy bnei chayri. This shtar of this that we're writing now is not to be used to be goyim from a shavdi and not from the bnei chayri. It's not to be used to get from the owner if something happens to this, if it's taken away by al chayv. It's only to establish that this karka now belongs to this purchaser. So that's the lashon that you use to say that this is just a deed of sale, but it doesn't provide that there's any recourse for the purchaser to go get either from things that were sold by the seller or from even the property that belongs to the seller, the actual cash that the seller has. If it gets taken away from him by Balchayv, it's too bad. Amar Rafram says, from the fact that you say this lashon, for the fact that we have to write this specific lashon that says that there's no achrayis, that there's no recourse if the property is taken away from you, we see that we don't hold of achrayis tayis seifer. There's a shita that holds that every sale always includes an implicit. Everyone means to include achrayis. No one would buy a property, and then if it gets taken away from him, that he has no recourse to go after the seller. So if the achrayis was not written into it, it's a mistake, and we assume that was the intention anyway. So from the fact, time of the cost of leihachi, it's only because he wrote this provision keeping out the achrayis. So lei cost of leihachi gavi. It's mashma that if he wouldn't have written this, he would be able to be gaiva. So vice dice, that you have to write something to take away that we're holding achrayis as a tayis sefer. The fact that it wasn't written, just that doesn't take away the achrayis. It's only if you write, like we said in this case, you specifically take away the achrayis. Zak the Gemara, Ravashi achrayis lav tayis sefer. Ravashi disagrees. He says no. Achrayis is not necessarily included in every shtar. Umay chutz me'achrayis shaboy. What does it mean in our brisa that we say you write a new shtar but without achrayis? Delay kasa be'achrayis. All it means is he didn't write achrayis. It doesn't mean, like we just described, you have to write a special provision excluding achrayis. As long as achrayis wasn't included, then it's not considered to be part. We don't impute it into the shtar without a specific provision. There was this woman. She gave money to a man, a shliach, to purchase land for her. And he went and he purchased it for her, and he didn't put in achrayis, either according to the Mandamar that he just left it out, or he allowed to put in a provision excluding it. When the woman was very upset, she said, I told you to buy the land. I didn't tell you to leave out achrayis. Of course I want title insurance. That's essentially what it is. They came to Rav Nachman. He said to the shliach, you messed up. You really should have included achrayis. You were there to help her, not to hurt her. So what do you have to do? Zil zavna mina shalei b'achrayis, v'hada zavna nehalei b'achrayis. Go buy from her. Go buy this property that she now has without any achrayis. Go buy it from her, where there's not going to be any provision. She's not going to get it. You're not going to have any backup if it gets taken away. And then sell it back to her with achrayis. So he has to make a whole new achrayis by selling it away and then reselling it. He has to create a new achrayis. This shliach now he thought he was doing a favor, and now he's stuck with the responsibility that if the property is ever taken away by a balchoiv of the original seller, he's going to have to make good to this woman. Okay, we'll stop over here. We'll start tomorrow from the 2 dots. Be'ez Hashem, 6:30 in Shul. Shkayach.